All right, guys. Thanks for humoring me. Um, Obviously, I only really have to introduce myself to Nicole and to the viewers out there live. I'm Coach Nino Villa. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm very, very passionate about financial literacy. I actually remember as a kid growing up, and my father was an entrepreneur. He was a guy who had owned multiple businesses throughout his lifetime. And by the time he purchased the home that we lived in, it was like his fourth or fifth home that he had purchased. The problem is, he actually never sat down and taught me anything about managing money. He never taught me how to um, buy a home, to shop for a mortgage, never talked about what it would be like to own my own business and how to get startup capital. None of that. Right? So here's a guy who obviously knew how to manage money, but never sat down to teach his own kids. And the problem is, we don't get taught how to manage money. I remember going to, I went to a pretty nice suburban high school, and I actually had to declare a major. I had to declare, what I want, a field I wanted to study in. And so I chose business. And I remember in my senior year, I took a personal finance course. And it did a pretty lousy job of teaching me how to deal with personal finances. I mean, maybe we talked about balancing a checkbook, and maybe we also covered credit cards and using credit cards wisely, and paying them off every month to avoid interest. But at the end of the day, it didn't really teach me much about personal finance. I do actually remember a project we had to do where we had to kind of essentially figure out how we would buy a vehicle. And so the vehicle any more than $5,000, and I don't remember the details of the project, but I'm guessing it probably asked us like whether or not we were going to save up the money and buy it with cash, or if we were going to put some money down and finance the rest, and what would that look like. I don't remember the details, but I do remember the project. And regardless, my parents and my school education failed at teaching me how to deal with money. And it wasn't long before I had some real money problems. In my late teens, early 20s, I actually bought a car from my dad. So it was a really small loan, about $4,000, and the payment was like $72 a month. And as time went on, I had to put a little bit of money into the car, a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. And I got to a point where I just didn't want to put any more money into the car. And so the car needed another repair. It needed some new brakes. And I decided, instead of putting $80 into the car to fix the brakes, I thought it would be a better idea to go down to the dealership, trade the car in for a whopping $500, and walk out with a brand new $430 car payment. Obviously, I didn't know how to manage money. And the problem is, a lot of us don't. Those guys saw me coming. I bought a Ford Escort for $430 a month on a 5-year loan. Like, they saw me coming, right? And so, unfortunately, the stupidity did not stop there. As I went on to college, I first started off pretty good. I went to a community college. I got grants to pay for my schooling, and then when the grants didn't cover it, I would actually pay cash. Novel idea. But unfortunately, I didn't finish school right away. I would stop and start again, stop and start again. And so fast forward a number of years, and I went back to school once I started working for a financial consulting firm. There's the irony right there. I worked for a financial consulting firm, and I was having money problems. Anyway, went back to school, and at that point decided to take out student loans. Right? It just seemed natural. I was making more money at that time. I was older, and so it was expensive, and I didn't have that kind of cash. But I wasn't worried about student loans because I was going to get tuition reimbursement. Well, the only problem with getting tuition reimbursement and paying for school with student loans first is you never really see the student loan money, right? So when you get that tuition reimbursement check, and it's like $4,000, and you're looking down at it, and nobody's going to require you to pay off your student loan with it, you're like, hey, let's go party. Right? And so all of a sudden, I started taking those tuition reimbursement checks, and instead of paying down my student loan debt, I cashed them and I spent them on only God knows what. I have no idea where any of that money went. And so, unfortunately, I just did a big pile of stupid for a long time. And it all came to a head about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I had an unemployment scare. The company I was working for was closing a satellite office, and I was going to be out of a job. And considering I have a wife and 2 children, and I was the sole income provider for the household, being unemployed wasn't an option. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had monthly bills and monthly payments coming out of my ears. And so being unemployed with no savings and being strapped paycheck to paycheck just was not an option. And so that scare was enough for me to wake up and figure I need to do something different. I need a new plan because my plan sucked. Right? My plan got me into a bunch of debt. My plan had me spending money I didn't have, and my plan had me worried about unemployment. So I went out looking for a new plan. I did some research on just budgeting and money management, and I came across a guy named Dave Ramsey, and I got on the Dave Ramsey plan. And so I will share a lot of information about Dave Ramsey and his plan in a little while, but I really want to start off by saying if you don't have a plan, then you're in the right place. Because I'm here to help you get on a plan and to execute that plan. And that plan will be successful, and it will get you on a path to regaining control of your finances and get you to becoming debt-free. As you saw in the video, I've been at it for 18 months. My wife and I have paid off more than $30,000 worth of debt. That includes 2 auto loans, about 18 different credit cards, and some other stupid personal loans along the way. We do not have a single credit card today, and life is just fine. We don't have a car payment. That's kind of new. We just paid off the other car last month, and it just feels great. So I'm here to help you get on a plan and help you figure out what is the plan. All right? So I'm a big believer in 2 components to this plan, and the first is a budget. You gotta be on a monthly budget, a new one, every single month, on paper, on purpose, writing out every dollar and assigning it a mission. If you don't do a monthly budget brand new every single month, then you're not on the right plan. Because that was my old plan. I had one of those template type of budgets, where you say, oh, well, this is what my income is, and so rent's the same all the time, and so you put in rent, and the electric bill has to get paid every month, so you put in the electric bill.
No, I only have it open once.
And hi, Roseanne. I'm going to mute you. And so you put in the electric, and of course the gas has to get paid every month, so you put in gas for the house. But my budget didn't include things like gas for the vehicles. It didn't include how much I was spending on groceries. So it was incomplete, and it was a template for every single month, which was just bad. Bad, bad, bad. Because what happens with a templated budget at the end of your pay period? You look down, you're like, I have $500 left. And then by the time you get paid next, you wonder, what happened to the $500 I had left from the the last pay period? And it just disappears on you, right? $200 spent at the grocery store, and then right before you went to the grocery store, you went out to dinner because you didn't want to go to the grocery store hungry, and so you spent $50, out at a restaurant. And then after you did all that running around, you're like, well, now we got to go get like some frozen yogurt or something, and then you know checked out a movie, and by the time it was all said and done, $500 was gone. Right? So Dave Ramsey talks about budgeting. He talks about the importance of what he calls a zero-based budget, which means if you make $3,000 a month, you assign all $3,000 a mission. So a couple hundred of that might have a mission to go into the savings account, so you have some money in the bank, and a couple $100 is going to be assigned to your rent or your mortgage, and so you start to assign every dollar a mission. So I'm going to kind of pause there for a moment, and I'm going to ask my esteemed panel of experts over here to kind of weigh in and chime in on the importance of a monthly budget that is done brand new every single month on paper, on purpose, or in a spreadsheet if you like to go high tech like I do. So Jackie, I know you got some thoughts on budgeting.
I was actually going to say, look at Katie. She looks ready to go. She turned her mic off and everything.
Oh, sorry. Well, go ahead, Katie.
I'm just saying, you think that, like, oh, you got all this money in the bank, no problem, and then all your bills get paid, and you're like, hey, where'd it all go? You know, you just, like, because I used to do that, just do together, oh, yeah, I know what this is, and I know what that is. Well, where'd that extra money go? Because it's not there. And now it's kind of nice to know, oh, we got this going on this week. Oh, yeah, I got money in the bank for that. And, oh, it's nice to know that I have extra sitting there or whatever. Makes things so much easier and so much less stressful.
Wait. So what you're telling me is a budget actually, like, feels good? I thought, like, budgets are like, aren't budgets bad? Like, budget... bad. I'm not allowed to do anything. I can't have nice things. I'm on a budget.
That's the perception, and that's not reality.
Ooh.
The perception is so distorted of what a budget should be, because David and I have been on budgets before, and I hated it. And this budget is completely different, because not only do you have money that you're putting in savings if you're saving up that $1,000, but if you're not, then you're putting money towards actually paying off debts, and seeing those crossed off is amazing. And you have money for everything that you need. You don't feel like you're constricted, at least in my experience with this.
Mine too.
Yeah, and this is totally a rip-off cliche, and somebody much wiser than me said it, and I just love it. But, you know, a budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. So you could always look back and you could see, oh, well, I spent $200 at the grocery store, and oh, we spent $50 eating out. And you could look back, but when you look back, it usually comes with like that attitude of like, we did what? Why did we spend so much money doing that? Right? Versus if you put it in an envelope or you put it as a line item on your budget and you say, I'm going to the grocery store, I'm going to spend $200, you've already thought about it, you've made that decision, you've come to terms with that decision, and then you execute that decision, it has a whole different feel. Would you agree?
100%.
Yeah. Very cool. So what else could you share with our newcomer, Nicole, and for anybody out in YouTube land watching us, and talk about budgets? Roseanne, go ahead.
Okay.
You have to unmute yourself.
I could say that we've been on it for, I think, like 3 weeks now, and we started off the first week, and I was cussing everybody because we had 49 cents. And now I could say that we were robbing Peter to pay Paul every month. And I can at least say that we're on the track of not having to borrow or worry about how we're going to pay this, and can we pay off one bill or divide it against 3 bills. We have now gotten to the point where we have a 0 balance on 4 monthly bills. Thanks to Nino.
Well, I can only suggest some things. You went out and did, right? So kudos to you for executing the plan, right? because that's what at the end of the day, that's what a budget is. A budget is a plan. It's a contract between you and your money, right? If there's a relationship happening there, right? And some of us have a healthy relationship with money, and some of us don't. I now have a healthy relationship with money, but that wasn't always the case. Money had me. Money was telling me what to do. Well, now I tell my money what to do. I worked hard for it. I write it down on paper, on purpose, every month, brand new, and there's going to be the line items that show up every single month, and then there's going to be some additional items that only come up every once in a while. So I wanted to kind of pause there for just a second. Oh, go ahead, David.
Well, you were saying that talking about the importance of setting up not just a budget or a plan, but a budget and a plan that changes month to month. And I think, like my wife said, Jackie, we used to have a budget, but it was a flat budget, that this is what we do every single month. It doesn't change. It doesn't do anything different. And it's great as a starting point, but the truth of the matter is those are the situations that happen where you're like, oh, we forgot this person had a birthday, or this person, we had to go to a baby shower, or, oh, we forgot that we're out of the Costco size laundry detergent that we have to get, and we don't normally have to get all those things at the same time. And so what happens is you go from month to month and you think, this is how much we have budgeted, and we have this much extra, like you said, and hey, let's put a little in savings, and let's go to the store, and hey, we can buy this because we have this extra. But in reality, you're not taking those little things into account. And I think one of the pluses of having a month-to-month budget is that you have to think ahead. You have to say, okay, what's going to coming up? Because even for us, like, one of the things that was great is that we already have a budget line item for Christmas gifts and everything that's going on. But even in the last time when we made the budget, we started thinking, but what if we want to get Christmas lights? What if we're going to get wrapping paper? What if we're going to get stuff for the stockings? Is that going to come out of the line item for the Christmas money that we've been putting aside? And the answer became no. So instead of us having to create a brand new line item, we just pulled from something else that because we have a month-to-month budget, we're able to kind of see, like, do we really spend this much on gas? Do we really spend this much on groceries? Then let's deduct that. Let's change that this pay period or next pay period. And now we're going to be pulling this small amount out so that when Christmas does come around, we're able to actually pay for those things and not go over and not feel like, but it's the holidays, we have to spend all this money and do all these things. It makes you stay within that parameter of not going into a hole. And I think that's one of the big pluses of it all.
Yeah, obviously I can't say any of that any better. What it does help so you parlay that and you start to think, okay, so I have these line items, I have all these line items. What should be a line item? What shouldn't be? How do I manage? David, you brought up a great one, like the birthdays, right? Birthdays kind of sneak up on you, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. So-and-so's kid is having a birthday, and we're invited to the party, and we can't show up without a gift. And so you have to start asking yourself, what gets written into the budget and what doesn't? Well, the easy answer is everything gets written into the budget. But you are going to have those items that you're not necessarily thinking about. And actually, guys, I came up with a new line item that I haven't even shared with you yet. I'm so excited about it. We're not going to dive into it tonight. We'll dive into it in our one-on-ones. But I want each and every one of you to have an escrow account for the household. And so it'll be just another envelope that you stuff some money into that would be for birthday gifts for kids, or for just those things that kind of come up that you don't necessarily want to write a line item in. Excuse me. Or and you don't, like, let's say you want to spend like $40 on your spouse for like a birthday gift, but you don't want to like hit all $40 at once. You want to take it out in smaller chunks, and so you would stuff it in this escrow account. We'll talk about the escrow more later, but since I'm talking about stuffing envelopes, let's go there for a moment. So first and foremost, everything gets written down on the budget, but there are certain things in your budget that you really should start paying cash for again because of a slew of different reasons. And actually, I'll go back to the panel in a moment to tell you all the different reasons why you should be stuffing envelopes. But let's talk about what categories you might stuff an envelope for. So you know that your electric bill needs to be paid every single month. And nobody's going to ask you to pay cash for your electric bill. You set that up on like online bill pay, or you pay it over the internet with your debit card. You do that. That's convenient. That's wise. You keep doing that. But there are places that you travel to more often, and you spend way more money than you should, and you wouldn't if you stuffed some envelopes with cash and you paid cash. And the number one place you can do that, the grocery store. Stop buying your groceries with a debit or credit card. You will change your behavior if you stuff money into an envelope, go to the grocery store, and understand you only have that much money. Let's say it's $100 in an envelope. You only have $100 to buy your purchases with. You will shop differently. Which brings me to a quick side point. Getting control of your finances is not about what you know, it is about what you do. We all know that our electric bill would go down if we would just turn the thermostat up, right? If we, instead of having it sitting at 69, we had it set at 79 and the AC wasn't working, we all know our electric bill would go down. But you have to get up, walk over to the thermostat, and actually do. So getting control of your finances is not about what you know. It's a small portion. It's about what you go and you do. So let's talk about stuffing some envelopes and going grocery shopping with cash versus using a debit or credit card. What do you guys think?
One thing that's been like a big difference for me is I'm like, oh, let me make sure. Not a big difference because I've always like made a grocery list, but I've been like, oh yeah, we're gonna eat this, this, and this week. Okay, I'll make the grocery list, but I never check what I have in my fridge first or in my pantry to be like, do I really need 10 boxes of spaghetti? No, because I already have spaghetti in my house. So why am I gonna go and buy even more when I already have it? That's one of the biggest things is as far as food. And then like we do food, non-food, grocery, baby. Know exactly what I need to do as far as checking to make sure what we have, what we don't have, what we can live without, and like you've said many times, if you have to eat rice and beans and rice for dinner because you're on a tighter budget this week, then that's just what you do. But you're definitely more aware of what you have in the house and pay attention to what's like going on as
Meal
far
planning.
as that goes.
Yeah,
Yeah, meal
planning.
planning has been always been like a big thing for me, but I'll meal plan and I won't check what's in the house first, which is a big problem. Then food goes to waste and you don't, I don't know. That's been the biggest thing for me.
No, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. I think it goes back to a point where, like David was saying, or maybe it was Jackie, but like you have to actually think. By doing a budget every single month, and something even like your grocery shopping, you have to think. You have to plan. And so meal planning and going around the house is a big part of before I go, and before I just swipe the debit card, and before I get back home and wonder why did I spend $200, I think about it. I'm like, I'm going to the grocery store. I'm going with $200. Here are the things I'm going to get because here are the meals that I'm going to have this week. Absolutely. It might be a big change in the way somebody does their grocery shopping, but it's huge. Jackie, you wanted to chime in?
I'm like dying to chime in. I want to say a couple things. Number one, we do envelopes and we do food, which is grocery, non-food, restaurants, and then I think we actually just did a new envelope, but it's just for extra cash because we were actually going below everything, so we needed a place to kind of stash extra cash that we're using to pay off debts. But what I was going to say was with cash, we're not spending nearly as much, and I think the reason why is, well, number one, I think Dave Ramsey said it, or you said it, or somebody, but it actually hurts you to use cash more than it does a credit card. Like, there's actually something inside of you that it hurts you when you hand over that cash, and you actually don't get that feeling with a credit card or a debit card, and you just swipe away and you don't know what you have left. So that's worked really, really, really well for us. And planning is a big thing too, and it does. It kind of forces you to plan everything. My husband's been lucky because I've been having to plan food and everything, and I've been cooking every day, like home cooked meals and everything, and I'm doing it all really cheap because I'm not going out and having to purchase a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff I already have in the house, so I'm learning how to kind of adjust and use. And then if I have to pick up little things here and there, then I can go pick them up. But we're not spending nearly as much money as we used to, and we're getting better food, and because I made it, it's better,
Absolutely. Yeah, so everything you hear me say, if it sounds like really intelligent, it probably came from Dave. And so yes, Dave talks about in one of his lessons, there was actually a study done where they monitored people under an MRI machine, and when dealing with cash, like the pain receptors in your brain actually fire off. When dealing with plastic, they don't. So you have an ouchie moment. Like you have when you have Uncle Ben, as he likes to call it, right, Benjamin Franklin, in your hand, and you have to lay that down on the counter, it's different, and it makes us behave differently. So I saw that Nicole said earlier she definitely needs to start using cash more. So we're stuffing envelopes for the grocery store. What else are we stuffing envelopes for, or using cash instead of plastic?
Our spending money, our pocket money, our gas. Because, you put gas in the car, you don't think, like, oh, how long does this gas have to last me? You're just like, oh, if I want to, drive to Port St. Lucie, I can. If I want to drive to Boca, I can. Go wherever I need to go. But I don't think about it, and I don't think about, oh crap, how am I going to get to work if I'm out of gas and I'm out of my gas money? So, gas. What else? David?
Go ahead, David.
For us, it was restaurants. I think that was one of the things. Like, we had a budget for food, and we would use money out of that to go eat out, and then all of a sudden it'd be like, how are we spending so much money, and how do we not have money for groceries or that kind of thing? And it's interesting because my cousins are on the plan, and they've been on the plan for some time now, and they said that when they first got on the plan, they did a calculation of how much they were spending just at restaurants for a year, and the total amount was a little over $36,000 they were spending in a year eating out. And so they weren't eating, like, a couple times they were probably eating out about 3 to 4 times a week. They would go out to a restaurant. And some places are, small places that we're going, but other places were like really nice restaurants that they were going to, like a Truluck's or a Ruth Chris or Morton Steakhouse or something like that nature. And I think we weren't to that extent, but I know we were going out to eat a lot. And it was adding up. So this way, we make smarter decisions because you look in the envelope and you say, okay, so we don't get paid for another 2 weeks, which means that we don't replenish this for another 2 weeks. So what days do we know that we're going to have to eat out? Where are we going? We're making different choices as where we're going. What are we sharing? Food. If someone is like, oftentimes my daughter we'd order food for her, and then she'd end up just eating my wife's food because she would eat some of hers and then go, I like better what you ordered. And then so now what we do is when we go out to the restaurant, my wife orders something that Gianna's going to share with her because it's easier for her to do that. She's going to do it in the long run anyways, so it's cheaper on us, and we have more money in the envelope for food money, so it works out.
Can I just say, so my birthday was on Tuesday, right? And so we went out to dinner after Faith went to karate. We went to Carrabba's Italian restaurant. A family of 4 sat down, had a lovely meal, $21. Yeah, yeah, get it. So, absolutely, you gotta find creative ways to save money. You know, the portion sizes at restaurants are just like absolutely ridiculous. My wife and I like all the same food mostly. She likes a lot more seafood than I do, but I'll indulge every once in a while. But we pretty much like the same food, so we order one meal and we split it, right? And so definitely can save on the calories and on the moolah. What's up, Jackie?
I just wanted to say one other thing. We also, which before we really never had, and if we did, it was very inconsistent. We have money that we get for ourselves each time we get paid, and we could do whatever we want with that money. We can go get a pedicure for me, or a haircut for him, or whatever it is. I'm choosing to save my money for something in particular, but we didn't have that before. So again, this portion of it really helps to make you feel like you're not so constricted, and that like you actually can do something without feeling like, oh, am I going overboard? So that was a big thing too.
Yeah, I bet we could spend a lot of time talking about that one, because I bet I'm going to say something that we haven't talked about as a group before, but I'm guessing everybody is in the exact same boat. And that is, before I was on this plan, to Jackie's point, we didn't have cash like in our pocket. So it was always like if we wanted something, we kind of had to check with the spouse. And since I was the one who, brings the income in, and I was the one that did the budget, I didn't have to consult Christina nearly as much as she had to call me and say, do we have money for this? 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 Man, that gets annoying, right? It gets annoying for her to have to call. It gets annoying for me to have to be like, maybe we do, maybe we don't. And all of a sudden, these little bickering money fights that used to occur because maybe I remember vividly one time I told her, yes, you can get our daughter's ears pierced. Like, yes, you can. She goes to swipe the debit card, declined, not enough money in the bank to get ears pierced, mind you. So we're talking like, what, $8? How embarrassing is that? And so she was furious, and she had every right to be, right? Because we were just living so, like, constrained. But the fact that she had to call me and that I said yes, but it was really a no, and then our friend that was with her flipped the bill, and what an embarrassing fiasco. Goes away once you get cash money in your pocket, because if you got the cash, the answer is yes. If you don't have the cash, the answer is no. It is that simple. Very exciting. All right, so we've talked a lot about like stuffing some cash envelopes. Obviously, groceries. You guys have heard us talk about like food and non-food, like groceries versus toiletries. You have options here, right? You could make one envelope for grocery and go to Walmart and buy, everything that you need food-wise. You could get your shampoo, your conditioner, your soaps. But I really do strongly recommend that everybody split it up, and I think everybody in this group does. You split it up where money for things that are going to go in your mouth, you're going to eat it, that goes in one envelope. Things that you need to get at Walmart that are for the household, like dishwasher soap and laundry detergent and all those other things, that goes in another envelope. And then for you, for those of us that have babies like myself, you got to have a baby fund, because those are non-negotiables. The baby has to have their formula, has to have their diapers, and so that goes in a separate one. And I'll tell you, I get some weird looks because I put everything on the conveyor belt in those groupings, and I'm all like, I'm paying for this first, and then I pay for the food first, and then I pay for the second group of things, and I pay for that out of a separate envelope, and then I buy the baby stuff with yet another envelope. So I have 3 transactions when I go, and I don't care what kind of funny faces people are making, because it helps us to remain in control of our finances, and we never dip into one envelope to pay for another envelope. It is really about sticking to a budget and understanding I got this much money. So let's talk about that for a second. What happens when you go to the grocery store with an envelope with $100 in it, and they scan everything, and it comes out to like $110? What do you do?
Put stuff back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what do you put back?
The stuff
Everything
that's
to make
not
it under
necessary.
$100.
What did you say, Roseanne?
Anything to make it $100. And we actually use a calculator as we're going through the store.
Nice.
At least I do. I don't know about Reggie. He's pretty frugal. I don't have to worry about that department. But I use a calculator to make sure I'm staying within budget.
Absolutely.
And never go to the food store hungry, to the grocery store hungry. Never. Ever.
Absolutely. You'll buy more junk that you don't need than ever. Yeah, and so, Nicole, you got it. You just put things back that you don't, that are not. Hey, Manny, welcome. I'm going to mute you real quick. So, yeah, Nicole, you got it. Anything you don't need, right? It doesn't matter what you put back, but I like to put things on the conveyor belt, like in the order of importance, right? So I'm all like, oh, we need the bread, we need the eggs, we need the milk, and then, like, the stuff, like the fruit snacks, the granola bars, are, like, at the back, so that if I go over, it's all like, yeah, just get rid of these things, right? So it becomes a game. It becomes a lot of fun to kind of just really take control and be in control. It's awesome. All right, so we have talked a lot about the budget, and we could certainly go on. Is there anything that anybody wanted to say about the budget before we move on to the second part of the plan? So again, the plan has two essential parts. The first part is a budget, on paper, on purpose, every single month, brand new, so that you're in control of your money. But then there's this other part. So before I talk about the other part, anything that anybody wants to say about budgeting before we move on?
Yeah, one thing that we are still learning is the biggest part. We have the budget, and that's great, but our habits are so bad with money that we're like, oh, we need this, we just get it. So we're still trying, and we've curved it a lot, like majorly, like from spending hundreds of dollars on stuff that we never would use, we're learning to like just not do it, but it's still a struggle. A huge part is changing your habits. That is like one of the toughest things for us. Like, I forgot to pack my lunch last night, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll just get some, wait a minute, never mind. Let me get out of bed now and go throw whatever leftovers I have like in a lunchbox, because that's what I'm going to have for lunch.
But
I'm
at
not going to
least,
go and spend.
but Katie, at least that went through your mind though, because that right there shows change. Because normally you would have just said, you know what, I'm too tired, I'm not going to do it. And that's what happened with me a lot with cooking dinner, even to say, can you just pick up something on the way home because I'm too tired, I don't have the energy. You're changing your mindset completely, because you wouldn't have normally thought, all right, let me just pull my butt out of bed and go do what I got to go do.
Yeah, normally it was like at least 3 or 4 times a week that I'm like, okay, I either need to pick up lunch or I need to pick up dinner or whatever. So far this week it was once, and that was a whole nother different situation that I'm sure we will get into when we have our one-on-one. But yeah, so it's like a huge thing that you're like, oh yeah, you know, maybe if you don't see as much progress in the beginning, it's because you need to actually do what you're supposed to, and not just what you say you're going to do.
That's a big one, right? That, like, the budget is there, like I said, it's a contract between you and your money to say this is what's going to happen, and nothing more and nothing less of this, right? And you can come back to the budget, and you can tweak it, and you can say, oh, well, we forgot about this, so we have to write that in. You got to figure out where that's coming from and all those different things. But you really want to get to a point that, and it takes time. You're not going to get it for like the first couple of months. After about 2 or 3 months, you'll get to a point where the budget is basically like etched in stone for you. And you're like, this is it. This is what we're doing, and we're not changing anything. And so and you'll get to that point where you're really, really disciplined in it. Go ahead, Jackie.
I just wanted to say before you close out budget, I'm going to say it just one more time. Although the word budget has such a bad reputation, just don't think of it that way. It's really not. It's the way that it's set up. It's an awesome, awesome thing, and you don't feel constricted. It's not like budgets I've ever experienced in the past. So I just, in closing, want to say, embrace the budget because you're going to love it in the end.
Yeah, and actually that reminds me of another very important point, and there are a lot more points about budgeting. I mean, we could really truly go on because there's just so many different things. But one of the things is, I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong here, Jackie, but I'm guessing you feel a little bit better about the budgets nowadays because it's also an equal partnership, and you have equal say in the budget, which may or may not have been the case before.
Yeah, the whole example you gave about your wife having to come to you and ask for X, Y, and Z, and then she would get frustrated and would frustrate you. I mean, to a T, that was my husband and I, and that is not even an issue anymore. Like, money is not even, like, I don't even know the last time we had, like, a whole conversation about, like, a heated conversation about finances. Everything, we seem to be very, like, in unison, and, like, we're both on the same page. And, babe, chime in, please.
Yes. No, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, it's having common goals. I think you have to kind of think to yourself. I think we're a society of, we want immediate gratification. So we want something that I have a good job, I make good money, I work really hard, I should be able to spend my money the way that I want to spend it. My bills are paid, I put a little bit in savings, so I should not have to do anything different than what I'm doing right now. When the reality is if later on you're like, I want to buy a house, I don't want to drive this car for the rest of my life, I want to be able to put my kids through college, I want to be able to, be debt-free and not have to worry about these things, then these are the sacrifices. And I say sacrifice very loosely because everyone's kind of been making comments in the essence of, if you go to the grocery store, it becomes need versus want. Would I like to buy gelato every single time I go to the grocery store? Heck yeah, I like to buy gelato. Everybody likes gelato. You like gelato, I like gelato. But is it worth me spending the amount of money I'm going to spend on little treats here and there and things that I like, rather than, is there actual food in my house of what I need to live? Are the bills being paid? Is my electricity going to turn off? Am I going to go on a trip and come back and now we're in a hole because we went on a trip and we had a great time, but we were dreading coming home because now we're like, what are we going to pay? We're going to pay the electricity or are we going to pay the water? What needs to be turned off? And have to be at that edge of the cliff. Now we don't have that thinking. And I think it's, when you're in one common goal, you have less stress because if I'm spending this money, I know it was allocated for me to spend this money. I know where it's coming from. I don't have to worry that, this is going to come up and I couldn't pay it. And that's a lot less stress in your life,
Absolutely. So to kind of close out budgeting, hey, Manny, go ahead. Take yourself off mute and chime in.
Oh, I was just going to ask David, like, between you and your wife, what do you think that one thing is that brought you to that level of understanding about money-wise, as far as not spending here and there or anything like that? How was your communication with her?
I think it was, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it came down to verbalizing what our goals were together rather than assuming. Because I think sometimes couples, what they do is they don't communicate as clearly as they need to when it comes to common goals. So in your mind, you might think, I know that we eventually want to buy a house. We want to get another car. We want to do these kind of things. Your wife's mind, she may be completely like, no, I think we need to get new furniture in the kids' room. I think that I want to upgrade my car. I want to get a different cell phone. And those goals are now conflicting. So what happens is when you go and you spend money, she's going to look at it like you could have been using that money for the goals that she had. And the same vice versa. If you send her to the grocery store and she comes back with like, you only went to the grocery store for bread. and you came back with all of these things that I don't even know they made. So like it's that type of thinking. Get on a common goals, and then you're gonna have little things that you say, I don't need to get my hair cut every 2 weeks, or I don't need to go get a pedicure. Okay, I think that's what it comes down to when you have that allocated money that you say, here's your pocket money, here's my pocket money, you can do whatever you like with that money. You know, and I think that's where a lot of the strain comes sometimes, because in relationships there's always one person usually that's in charge of the finances, and the other person is kind of like the person that kind of has to fall will to whatever that person says, because they're not really as active in the financing. And no matter how much you communicate, no matter how much you say, oh, you spend it but know what's in the account, their mind doesn't work that way. So you have to come to common ground, you have to create long-term goals, and you have to create something that is not going to feel like you're constricted. And if you're going to sacrifice to get to those common goals, be on the same page as to what that sacrifice looks like. There can't be any assumptions.
And I'm going to say that I think a big thing for me as well was I realized there was a lot of arguments that were coming and surrounding finances, and I felt like I was going to my dad asking for money, although he didn't tell me to come ask him for money. That's what it kind of felt like. So after sitting with Nino, I think the first time, and my sister will agree, she's got her hand up, after sitting with Nino for the first time, I realized, like, this is not what I want, and we did establish what those goals are, what we each wanted, and figured the only way that we were going to get there is by going through this plan. Something that also helped me a whole lot, Manny, was I read Dave Ramsey's book. I took the initiative and kind of read the book, which put me even further on board than I was even in the beginning. So that as well.
Yeah, and just for just so everybody knows, Manny actually attends Palm Valley Church with me, and he is co-facilitating Financial Peace University, so he's very familiar with the plan. And so, thanks for joining us tonight, Manny. Real quick, guys, as we close out, I know we've talked about closing out this budget conversation. Like I said, it could go on forever. I just wanted to kind of share on screen. I shared with the group. You might have got a note from me today because I wanted to be transparent. You guys are transparent with your budgets with me since I coach you. I figured I should be transparent with you. And so here's my family budget, and I just wanted to kind of show that it really is pretty simple to put everything on paper on purpose every single month. So you start with the income on top, and then you go down the list in order of importance. And so, you know, a lot of us here on the call are believers and believe that we are made in the image of our Father, and our Father is a giver, so we put giving first. And in a transparent moment with everybody, up until last week, I was not tithing a full 10%. We were tithing, but not a full 10%. And my wife and I have we've recommitted to actually, providing to the Lord what is the Lord's. Savings comes after that, and so if you have a $1,000 emergency fund, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, then you're already there. Otherwise, like we had a moment this past week where we had to replenish the emergency fund because we had to dip into it. And then your expenses. And your expenses should be listed in order of importance. So Dave Ramsey talks about the 4 walls. He talks about food, housing, transportation, and basic clothing. I kind of eliminated the basic clothing, and I have food, housing, plus utilities, and transportation. After that, I think it's important that you pay for your insurances, then your monthly bills and subscriptions. And when my wife and I went through Financial Peace University, we found $512 worth of extra monthly subscriptions that we got rid of to get $512 back in our pockets every single month. And that included things like, you'll see security here. We called ADT, our security company. They were charging us $42 a month. We told them we were going to cancel, and they price matched a competitor at $26 a month. So, find ways to drive down your expenses, then the recreation, and then our debts. And so that is a nice segue into the second part of the plan, which is Dave Ramsey calls them the baby steps, right? So you have to be on a budget the budget is kind of like baby step 0. Like if you're not on a budget, you might as well not even kind of start traveling down the other steps because you don't have a key component to the plan. And so Dave Ramsey has 7 baby steps, and we're going to cover all 7 of them, but we're going to really spend our time on the first 3 because that's where most people are going to spend the most time. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here again in a second, and we're going to go over those different baby steps. All right, so I think everybody can see my screen. What I'm doing right now is I'm just sharing my screen. I'm on Dave Ramsey's website. So Dave, you can go to Get Started, and under the basics, the 7 baby steps. And so baby step number 1 of the plan is to have a $1,000 emergency fund established. And this is just to start. It's a starter emergency fund, but it's $1,000 stocked away in the bank or in a cookie jar, but somewhere that you can get it in case of an emergency. So if you have more than $1,000 in the bank today, you're already there. If you don't have $1,000 in the bank set aside, stocked away for emergencies, then that's going to be your first priority. Anything that you have extra from your budget would go towards establishing this $1,000 emergency fund. So let's talk about the emergency fund for just a small little bit. The emergency fund should take the place of credit cards. Right now, we hold on to credit cards in case of an emergency. If a tire went flat on your vehicle tomorrow and you don't have $1,000 in the bank, you are probably going to swipe a credit card. So in order to get you out of the debt cycle, we're going to establish that $1,000 emergency fund. So I'm going to turn it over to the panel for a second and ask you guys what constitutes an emergency and what does not constitute an emergency.
Something that you want versus something that you need.
Okay, at the very base level, you're absolutely right. If it's a want, it's not an emergency. If it's a need, it may be an emergency. We'll dig into that a little bit deeper. Manny, you had your hand up.
I have an example. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. We'll get to you, Jackie. Go ahead, Manny.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, for ours, we had to dip into it because my son had a emergency dental surgery. We kind of knew about it, but the problem is we weren't able to financially set aside money for it. So then we decided as my wife and I, as a couple, that we decided to dip into that to be able to use it to fund that. And he had a successful surgery yesterday. So.
All right. Thank you for that. It's good to hear everything went well. All right, Jackie. I know you're chomping at the bit.
I was just going to say an emergency would oh, look at him. I'm sorry. An emergency would consist of something that was unplanned, unexpected, like, you know, a tire blowing, or, well, I don't know if you would consider that one because you're supposed to have money aside for things like that. But if something drastic happened that you unforeseen circumstances.
So, Jackie,
and something that is not an emergency. Go ahead.
Oh, no. It's okay. You're breaking up a little bit, though. I think your bandwidth was slowing down, so hopefully it's back to normal. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just saying, unforeseen circumstances would be considered more of an emergency. Something that's not an emergency would be something like Christmas or, birthdays, because these are all things that you know good and well are coming, and you could plan for those.
Oh, you mean that Christmas is on December 25th this year? I had no idea. Oh, man.
Is it really?
So you bring up a good point about like something like a tire blowing, right? Or any type of car repair. Is that an emergency? Well, Dave does talk about having a $1,000 emergency fund and not saving anything else while you're getting out of debt. So that really would be an emergency. Yeah, you know it's coming, but you don't know when. So don't sock other money away on the side, because that could be used to pay down your debts. That's why the $1,000 emergency fund is there. Now, if the emergency is bigger than $1,000, you're going to have to figure out in your monthly budget where's the rest of that money coming from. But you're absolutely right. A car repair or a tire being replaced, that would come out of the emergency fund. Very cool. The emergency fund's pretty basic. I don't want to spend too much time here if we don't have to, but anybody have anything else they want to say about an emergency fund, getting that together, what you would use it for, what you wouldn't use it for, that type of thing? All right, just to reiterate, this should be priority number one with any extra money out of your budget. So if you do your budget for the month and at the bottom of it, it says you have $241 left over, that $241 would go into your emergency fund until you have it fully funded well, not fully funded, but the starter emergency funded at $1,000. That, as soon as you have $1,000 in the bank, and your emergency fund is established, you are going to go to baby step number 2. Baby step number 2 is where people are going to spend the longest period of time, because this is about you getting out of debt. So, what is a debt? A debt is anything that you owe to other people, whether that other people be a bank, whether it be a parent, a sibling, a medical office. It doesn't matter who you owe it to, but if you owe somebody money, and if you're making monthly payments on something that you owe a balance on, so that does not include things like your electricity. You do pay that monthly, but you don't have a balance on it. You're just paying for consumption. If you pay monthly payments on something that you have a balance on, furniture, car, student loan, everything, in a house is a debt too, but in baby step number 2, you're going to list all your debts except the house, in an order from smallest to largest by balance owed. So do not worry about the interest rate here, because when you do the math on the interest rate, whether you get out of debt 3 months earlier because you paid the highest interest rate than you would have if you paid the smallest one, the numbers are minimal at best. So really focus on the smallest balance. And so once you do your budget, again, if you had $241 left over at the end of the month, you pay minimums on all of your debts except the smallest one. You would take that $241 extra dollars and you would throw it at the smallest debt until it's paid. It's called the debt snowball for a reason, because once you pay off that first debt, you would take the monthly minimum payment you were making on that. So let's say you had a credit card for $500 and you finally paid it off, and the minimum monthly payment on that was $25. You would take your $25, roll it into the next minimum monthly payment. So you would take $25 plus, let's say it was another credit card with another $25 minimum monthly fee, and now you would be sending them at minimum $50 a month, plus anything extra from the budget. Once you've done the budget and you see you have some unallocated funds, you would take those funds and you would throw it at the next debt, and so on and so forth. So actually, let me flip back real quick to my budget, and you'll see over here to the side, we listed our debts, smallest to largest. So first, it was my wife's car, $4,300. Then a water softening system that we bought, which was $5,700. My car, which at the time that we started, I owed $10,300 on. And then we have student loans in the tens of thousands of dollars. And so what you'll see here is when we sold my wife's car for $4,300, we took the $200 minimum monthly payment, we rolled that into the $130 we were already sending to the water softening debt, and so now we had a new minimum monthly payment of $330. So that debt got $330 minimum every single month until it was paid. Most months it got much more than that. Maybe it got $600, maybe it got $900, but it always got a minimum of $330 as the new minimum monthly payment. As soon as that was paid off, we took that $330, rolled it into the $403 we were already paying to the car, and we had a new minimum monthly payment of $733. Again, we paid more when we could, but we always paid $733 minimum to the car until it was paid. Now, you would naturally assume that I would take that 733 plus the 452 and make some ridiculously large payments to my student loans, but the problem is with my student loans, they were on deferment and in forbearance for such a long time because I couldn't afford the minimums that I'm going to have to kind of start over and start at the $452 minimum so that I can start to go into repayment on these other two loans that are not in repayment yet. So that's where it kind of breaks down for me, but hopefully you got a good sense of the illustration of once one debt is paid off, you roll that minimum monthly payment into the next debt, and you just throw everything you have at it until it's paid. So let me kind of stop there, go back to the panel and ask you guys, what other tips and tricks could you share with our viewers about the debt snowball and paying off your debts?
Well, since nobody else is starting, I guess I will. Well, I think that this was recently learned. Some of our debts that we were dealing with are older debts, and they're a lot harder to actually pay. It's surprising how hard it is to actually give somebody money and pay them like your debt. I've had to actually, with two companies not calling me back in 3 weeks, had to give them basically a deadline to call me back before I write them off as done. One has contacted me back, another one hasn't. But I realized with it, like, you're in control, and a big thing is sometimes they're going to say that you owe money, but they can't produce facts that you actually owe them some sort of funds. I actually had one company tell me, you do owe us money, and then I asked for something proving that, and then they came back and said, oh wait, no, you don't owe us money. So I think it's important to really dig into it because you could be paying a company money that you don't necessarily owe them.
So let me ask you this, Jackie, as a follow-up question. As a benefit to anybody who might view this, talk about the process of listing out all those debts. Was that fun for you? Was that not fun for you? Like, did you dread it? Like, the process of listing your debts out, smallest to largest, and attacking them and finally deciding to pay them, what was that like for you?
There was mixed emotions. I was really scared listing them out because I was scared to see what that number was and how much that I actually held. I was excited because I was going to actually tackle it. And I got even more frightened because originally when we did our budget, it was just based off of what I had known that we did owe. So I didn't look at my credit report, and that was even scarier looking at my credit report to then have to list additional things that maybe I had missed. But in all honesty, looking at my credit report was probably the most relieving thing ever because unfortunately it's not something to be proud of, but I did hit that 7-year mark with a lot of things, and they were no longer on my credit. So there was nothing that I had to pay to these people anymore, and that was a huge relief for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. It is a scary process. It's not necessarily a lot of fun to sit down and list out all the debts, but what a sense of control of the situation once you know I'm on a budget, I have a plan, and now you know what it is, right? For us, like I said, we've paid off over $30,000 in debt in 18 months. That has been extraordinary, but we still have a mountain to climb. There's still a little over $100,000 in student loan debt to tackle, and it's not necessarily fun, but it's nice to have a plan. We're on the plan, and the plan is working. So it's not necessarily fun, and it can be kind of scary. But for you, Jackie, was it worse than you thought or was it actually not as bad as you thought?
No, actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I think it could have been a lot worse. I feel like when we did write everything down, um, it wasn't as big of a monster as I saw in my head, I guess is the best way to explain it.
And I remember having a moment with you two where, you know, after you were able to finally list them all out and we got that total number, but then we also went back to look at the budget and saw, you know, how much money do you have in the budget to attack it, right? So now you have the number, and now you know how much you can contribute every month to that number to pay it off, and we got a timeline. Now we have like, you could be debt free by X date. Tell me how that feels.
That's huge. I mean, to think that at some point we're going to, and it's not even some far-fetched thing. This is something we're talking about a couple of years. We will have absolutely no debt. I mean, that's mind-blowing because who doesn't have debt? I mean, everybody has debt. So to think that we won't and we can actually purchase things that we want to purchase without going further into debt, it's a relief for me.
Absolutely.
I know when you told like me, like the last time we talked, like, oh yeah, it's probably, you know, if we're really diligent about it, it'd probably be like 6 months because we don't have that much debt. But I'm planning for a little bit further, like 9 months to a year, because I know we do have a lot of things that are going to come up that we are going to have to put money away for. But at the same time, knowing that, like, look, in a year's time, I could have nothing to worry about and just be, you know, paying for cash with everything and making sure that my kids have everything they need. It's such a relief. I even said after the first, I think it was the very first week, like, wow, I can't believe I'm not stressed out right now, because normally I would be freaking out. I would be yelling at anyone in sight and just mad at everybody, and it's nobody's fault but our own. But at the same time, it's like it's so much better just to feel like it's okay. Whatever we got going on right now, it's okay because we're going to get it taken care of. And, you know, soon enough we're going to get caught up and be all squared away with everyone.
Little French fries. I have Frosty.
You had a Frosty?
Yeah.
Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
Say
Hi.
Dead is dumb and...
Cash is king.
That's right. Dead is dumb and cash is king. All right, I'll be down in a little bit. Yeah, it's amazing what happens when all of a sudden you get control of your finances by telling your money where to go. There's a little less stress. Even if it's not... The term I always like to use is it's not sexy, right? It's not sexy that I had to send $733 to my auto loan every single month. That's not sexy because the minimum monthly payment was $403. So I could have had $330 to kind of just go and do whatever I wanted with, but on the back end of everything, right? After the year is over, after the 2 years is over, however many years it takes, and it only takes single-digit years. It will only take single-digit years. We're not talking about 10, 15, 20 years from now. We're talking 2, right? In 2 years, I will have, on an income of about $4,000 a month, the only payment I'll still have at that point is for the house, and so I will have like $2,000 that I get to do whatever I want with. How much could I save? How much could I give? And how much could I blow if I had $2,000 every single month to do whatever I wanted with? It's crazy to think about. And to your point, Jackie, I mean, who lives without debt? Well, I'll tell you, this guy's going to, and the 3 million listeners of Dave Ramsey are all working towards that common goal because we have been lied to, America. We have been lied to. We are a culture of instant gratification. We are a culture of entitlement. We deserve it, and we want everything yesterday, right? So we buy it with money we don't have to impress people we don't even know or like, for that matter, right? So we buy things we can't afford with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. What is wrong with us? How about do you live below your means? You know, Dave talks about when you buy a house or you're renting, that your house payment shouldn't be more than 25% of your take-home pay. Ours is like 18. I'm like, that's awesome. What it means is I could have had a bigger house. I could have bought more. And he says 25%, a bank will approve you for 33% of your take-home pay. Right? So I could have had a much bigger house, but I chose not to, because now I get a sense of calm that comes with knowing I can make my mortgage payment. I'm not going to go into foreclosure. They're not going to take my house away from me, right? And so live below your means. Use cash instead of credit. And we can talk, and we will talk about credit in another hangout, because we can talk about that for a long time. But baby step number 2 is about getting yourself out of debt, right? Getting yourself out of debt and getting yourself out of debt forever. So it's not, hey, pay off the credit card and then rack it back up. No, pay off the credit card, cut it up, call the credit card company and be like, hey, we need to talk. This relationship, it's not really working for me. I give, you take and take and take, and I just can't handle it anymore. So I'm dating somebody new. I'm dating cash, right? Have fun with it. I actually did that. As we called a couple of the credit card companies, I was all like, yeah, bad news. We need to break up. And of course, I got like the awkward silence because people are like, what the hell are you talking about? But have fun with it. Have fun with getting out of debt. And don't go back in. Because back earlier in the show, we told you, it's not about what you know, it's about what you do, right? And so 80% of personal finances is behavior-based. If you pay off the credit card only to go back and charge everything back up on it, you've done nothing. You're still the hamster in the wheel. It's about paying it off, cutting it up, and calling and canceling. And if you're worried about your credit score, tune into a future episode where we talk about FICO and how much I love FICO. And I'm from New York, so I'm very sarcastic, and if sarcasm is oozing out of my voice right now, I love you, FICO. I hate you, FICO. Stupid FICO. FICO went down when I paid off my auto loan. FICO was all like, you're not creditworthy because you responsibly paid off your auto loan. FICO. Anyway, that's for a whole nother day. So, baby step number 2, list your debts, smallest to largest, by bits. Pay off the smallest one as quickly as you can, roll any monthly payments into the next one, and you want quick wins. You want quick wins. If you can pay something off really quick, you're going to be like, hey, that was kind of cool. You do the next one, you're like, whoa, check that out. Jackie, how many has it been? How many have you been able to cross off the list so far?
Let me tell you right now.
What I'm most excited for Jackie and David is that it's reasonable to assume that by the end of November, his car will be paid off. And you guys have only been on the plan for, what, 2 months? Month and a half, 2 months? Something like that?
Yeah.
You haven't been on it for a long time.
Yeah. We have so far paid off. Sorry, my computer doesn't like me. Okay, we have paid off 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we paid off more than this. 5, 6, 7. I want to say like 8 things, maybe more than that.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's high single digits. It might even be in the double digits. You guys have like.
It probably is. I think it's probably higher than that, and I'm just not seeing it. But I know I've called a lot, and we've paid a lot.
Yeah, we hit a lot of the cells to try to make your spreadsheet cleaner looking. So that's probably why you're not seeing them.
Yeah.
But yeah, tremendous. Tremendous progress has been made already, and like you said, you're coming in under budget on things like your grocery spending and whatnot, and so you're freeing up even additional funds to pay it down even faster. It's awesome. So that's
I was way off. I'm sorry. We're definitely double digits. I'm seeing all the cells hidden, and we're like in the 20s, I think, 20 some odd debts.
20 some odd debts gone.
Yeah.
Out of your life forever. Very cool. Anything else you guys want to say about baby step number 2 and the debt snowball? All right.
I think it's really practical. I mean, really simple in all honesty. I mean, just as soon as you pay something off, roll it into something else, and you didn't have that money in your pocket anyways, so it doesn't hurt you any to just kind of roll it over to something else.
Exactly right. Exactly right. All right. So, like I said, you're going to spend the most time in baby step number 2. You know, it might take a year, it might take 2 years, it might take 4. But again, single-digit years. We're not even talking about 10 years. And so once you're out of baby step number 2, which again, you'll be there for a while, you have now got no debt payments except maybe a mortgage if you own a home. So you've paid off everything except your home. And now you've freed up all this extra money so that you can start to sock away for a bigger emergency fund. You want baby step number 3 is a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. Now, I do not typically disagree with Dave Ramsey because obviously his program works and it's extremely successful. But for some reason, I like the idea of 3 to 6 months of income more than I like the idea of 3 to 6 months of expenses. Because if you've driven all your expenses down, 3 to 6 months only might be like $10,000, where 3 to 6 months of income might be $15,000 or $20,000, and that number just sounds nicer as an emergency fund, right? It's just an additional $5,000, but to have $15,000 sitting away in the bank for a rainy day, it just sounds really, really good. And so imagine if you had $15,000 socked away in case of an emergency, you'd never need another credit card again, right? So 3 to 6 months of expenses, or like I said, 3 to 6 months of income to fully fund your emergency fund, and Dave Ramsey will be the first to tell you that this is just sitting idle in a bank. This is not invested. You need it to be liquid. You need it to be available when you need it. And so just like insurance, your fully funded emergency fund is insurance, and it costs you money. It's not going to make you money. It just sits there and maybe makes 0.1% if you're lucky, right? So once you have that fully funded, which won't take long, because again, imagine if I had everything paid off and I had an extra $2,000 sitting around, how long would it take me to save $15,000? 7 months, 7.5 months, less than a year, I'd have a fully funded emergency fund. And then I would go on to baby step number 4. Baby step number 4 is where you start to invest. And so now you're going to invest 15% of your household income into tax-deferred and tax-favored retirement funds. Now, Dave goes into great detail about what kind of mutual funds, and there's only 4 that you should be investing in, and he talks more about like investing and who to invest with and how to invest and all those different things. And because most of our viewers are not going to be here, I don't necessarily want to talk too much about baby step number 4 and exactly how to go about it, but I would like for you, Jackie, to talk about your experience with saving for retirement and what kind of happened during your process, if you know what I'm hinting at.
I think I have an idea. We were both, my husband and I were both paying into our 401k through our employer, and without his knowledge, I had went in and put both of our percentages up to 12% that they were taking out because our company matches. So we were getting a substantial amount into our 401k. During the process, though, we were told to put everything on pause because the additional money coming in is going to help us to pay off those debts faster. And then from there, once we get to this stage, we're going to go full force again into the 401k.
And so when I first suggested to you that you paused your retirement contributions, were you like, oh yeah, absolutely, makes perfect sense?
No, that.
I think he was smoking crack.
I didn't say that. No, I was not comfortable with that at all. That idea was nerve-wracking to me, which is really weird because I'm not a saver at all. But for whatever reason, with my 401k, I just felt like it was a personal savings account, which it is, and I just didn't like the idea of not putting money into it. So I did not like that at all, and it was something it was like a hard pill that I had to swallow. But the more I talked with you and even read the book and everything, I understand. I mean, the amount of money that we were putting in monthly, I think, how much was it monthly combined? How much money were we putting into the 401k monthly combined? Close to like $800. I don't know if it was 800. 600. I think it was 6. Was it, Nino? 6?
Actually, I think you're right that it was like 800, but then like the difference because of like after tax and before tax, you got like $600 back in your check, and an extra $600 a month.
Exactly. I mean, it makes a massive, massive difference, the amount of things that we're able to pay off with this money, and it's not to diminish the importance of a 401k because it's really, really important. But that 401k, I don't care how much money it's going to have in it at the end, it's definitely not going to be enough that's going to cover all of those debts and taking care of me and my family when we're going to need it. So I think the more important, and what I guess clicked in my mind was, in order for that 401k to be substantial or make any impact in my life when I need it, is if there's no debts kind of holding it back.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things that helped you to kind of make that decision was, again, the timeline. When you can start to put a timeline to the money and you say, okay, well, we're going to be in debt for this many years without it, but we're only going to be in debt for this amount of time with it, and so it's only paused for 18 months or whatever.
Yeah.
You start to realize, okay, like, it's temporary. We're not saying like stop your retirement contributions forever. We're saying just for the time being, so that you can get yourself out of debt, and then you're going to be able to contribute not only the 12%, you'll get it all the way up to 15%, and maybe even more, depending on, when you sit back down and relook at your goals and try to max out your retirement savings.
Yeah, so the timeline helped significantly as well. It put a lot of things into perspective.
Very cool. And so that's baby step number 4. And like I said, we're not going to get too much into like how to allocate that and who to invest with. We'll say that for another day. But when we look at the back 3 steps here, steps number 4, 5, and 6 really kind of all happen at once. Once you're out of debt and you have an emergency fund established of 3 to 6 months, well, then you can start to contribute 15% of your income. You can also start to contribute to any college funding for children if that's you. I know it is for us. And then you figure out what percentage that's going to be or whatever, and then you take any additional money after that and you pay down the house in baby step number 6. So baby step number 4, you contribute 15%. Baby step number 5, you decide how much you're going to contribute to a college fund. And baby step number 6 is anything left in the budget after this would go to paying towards down the house. So to give an example to our viewers, like I said, if I had $2,000 extra a month, after everything's paid and I have a fully funded emergency fund and the only debt left is the house, well, if I had $2,000 extra left over, about $600 of that would be going to retirement. Another $300 or $400 might be going towards college savings, and so that leaves another $1,000 still left over to start paying down the house. So instead of making my $765 house payment, I would be making a $1,765 house payment, and I'd have the house paid off again in single-digit years. It might be 4, it might be 6, just kind of depending on where the amount owed is at that point. And so I would be able to tear through the house, making a $1,700 payment on a house that I only owe $113,000 left on. I'd be able to tear into it. And so those three things kind of happen together, which really leaves baby step number 7, which is once the house is completely paid, you've made that last payment to the mortgage company, and now you got all of that extra cash. Now you really start to max out your retirement. You start to invest just regular investments into mutual funds, and so you just start building wealth, and you start giving it away like mad. And you start to live in completely countercultural to how we live in America today. 70% of people live paycheck to paycheck. The average household income is $50,000 a year. That means in your lifetime, you will have much more than $1 million go through your hands. Are you going to grab enough of it to have anything to show for it? Or are you going to just continue to pay it out in the form of payments to your car note, and to your mortgage, and to your student loans, and to this, that, and the other, to that furniture set that you just couldn't live without? I've been there. I've done stupid. I've done stupid with cars. I've done stupid with student loans. I've done stupid with furniture. I've done a lot of stupid. 2 years ago, I decided I wasn't going to do stupid any longer. And in 18 months, we paid off more than $30,000 worth of debt. The only things left are the student loans and the mortgage payment. We own the car. We own all the furniture. We own it all. We don't owe anybody for any of the stuff in our lives, except for that thing back there. I still got for that. So that's it. It's a deep dive into the plan. The plan has 2 components. You got to be on a budget, on paper, on purpose, every single month. And then you got the baby steps that help you to actually track, what am I doing? Where should my money be going? The baby steps tell you exactly what you should be focused on, and that's what this plan takes. It takes immense focus. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention, as you've heard today, I go by Coach Nino Villa because I am passionate about coaching and teaching people how to manage their money. I'm currently coaching a number of different couples, and they're in all different phases. Most of them are all in like baby step number 2, but they're all in different phases of how long it will take until they're in, and some are still looking for ways to slash expenses, while others are looking for ways to get their income up. But I'm here to help you get on the plan and stick to the plan. I'm here for that hands-on, over-the-shoulder, I'll tell you like it is, I'll love you with accountability and with grace, and I will tell you that you're not allowed to do that, and you don't want to do that because it's going to lead to this, and I offer that to anybody who's looking to gain control of their finances. So if you'd like to schedule some time with me, you can email me at coachninovilla@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter, on Facebook at Coach Nino Villa. Check out more episodes to come on the YouTube channel. Leave your comments below, and we will be certain to address any questions, comments, or concerns people have. Jackie, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know we lost some people along the way. It's late there on the East Coast. Thank you for hanging in there. Any final thoughts that you have?
No, not really. I just think that everything that you said is really true. And again, I think it's really about trusting the process because it works and it doesn't feel like we're being constrained. We just genuinely feel a lot of relief, and we feel like we're taking control of something that's been so out of our control for so long. So.
Yeah. And one other point, because I think about you and David and the journey that you guys have been on, and it's been an amazing journey for such a short period of time. And something you had mentioned earlier about you guys and how the finances used to work versus how they work now. And I just want to remind all of our viewers that the number one cause for divorce in America is money fights and money problems, right? So if you don't get control of it, it will get control of you. And you guys have been on an amazing journey already. Like I said, it's only been something like 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, it hasn't even been too long, but there's been so much progress and so much growth in that amount of time. Great.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, again, if you would like to receive some one-on-one coaching, I will link a form below. You fill out the form. You just give me the pertinent information, like your email address, your name, phone number, and I will contact you. We'll schedule some one-on-one time to get you coached. I provide the budget form, like I showcased earlier. We'll go through your budget. The first time you'll present the budget to me and let me know what's going on in your world, and then I will take that information, reconfigure it from a standpoint of, well, if I woke up in your shoes, what would I do? And then I'll present the budget back to you in our second session. So again, look for the form below. Jackie, thank you again for hanging out with us. Viewers, thank you for watching. And stay tuned. We'll come back and we'll talk about some of these things in more detail in future episodes.
Bye.
Bye.